my honor to introduce you, Jono,
Oh dear, that's never a good thing, is
because
it?
yeah, our star for today is Mr. Jono Elderson. And you can know Jono from all the previous podcasts, obviously, but also from being able to host an SEO news webinar with virtually no movement in his head. Pay attention today. He is also
Ah,
the head of SEO at Yoast, and of course, um, a super talented technical SEO. So please, a big round of applause for Jono Elderson.
thank you, and we should do one for you as well because you don't usually get an intro, do you? So we usually have Joost de Valk here, but if you missed the last couple of episodes, you might have missed that he's stepped back from Yoast a little bit and he's no longer doing the webinar. So we've replaced him with somebody almost as good. Somebody who, if you cut him, will bleed. I was about to say will bleed Yoast, but also will bleed WordPress in a kind of weird purple soup. I don't think there is anybody in the world who knows more about and is more involved in and is more part of a furniture in the world of WordPress in the best possible sense than Taco. So it's an absolute delight for him to be stepping from the background where he usually runs these things very seamlessly into the speaker's chair and to be a part of telling our story and getting you lot up to date on what's happening. So congrats and a round of applause for Taco as well. Very nice.
Oh, now I get why this was so awkward for you every month. Alrighty. Shall we get started with a bit of sad news first?
Yes, let's do this. This is important. So earlier this month, we got news from Go Fish Digital, who are a digital marketing agency, that Bill Swarsky passed away, which is really, really sad and really, really important. If you're not familiar, Bill was for since 1996, I think, had been writing about SEO and search engines and was a real staple of the community and the industry and a phenomenally important, influential person in the world of SEO. He wrote tens, hundreds, and thousands, millions of words potentially, analyzing all of the patents and technologies and behind the scenes information and researching how Google and other search engines worked. And he took all the stuff that people like Google published on their algorithms and made it accessible, interrogated it, analyzed it, and told us about it. And a huge part of where I learned SEO in my early days and continue to stay up to date was by the hard work that he did, poking around behind the scenes, trying to understand of all the things that Google are publishing, what's important, what might that mean, how might it work, what's the influence. And it is a horrendous, terrible loss that we no longer have him on hand. And from a very practical sense, like so much of what we do in SEO isn't well understood, isn't well documented, is trial and error. And to have lost such a paragon of a person who spent so much time trying to cut through some of that noise is so sad. I got the chance to hang out with him a bit at a conference in Milan a few years ago, and he was profoundly intelligent and insightful. So I would go and read everything he ever wrote. It's still really relevant. Check out SEO by the Sea is his blog. Reams and reams of intelligence on how bits of Google's patents might work and how to understand that. Go and do some digging. It's super valuable still, and it's really sad that that's all we'll get from him. So yeah, sad moment.
Yeah, so for the future of interpreting all that patent stuff, is there anyone who can fill his shoes at this point?
I don't really think so. There are a few people who do a bit of a job. So some of the team from Moz, like Dr. Pete, do a great job of trying to analyze the landscape. All of the SEO tools do a bit of analysis of what's going on. Dawn Anderson is quite good at this sort of thing. A few others as well. But there's nobody who is even at the kind of nobody will fill his shoes.
That's, yeah, a loss for the SEO community.
It is, but we shall try. We shall endeavour nonetheless, and we have SEO news to cover, and we will try and fill it in as best as we can.
Yeah, so we do have a lot of news today. We'll have Google news, Microsoft news, WordPress news, other tech news, Yoast news, and the best news, there will be a recording available afterwards. So let's start with some Google news. That said, if you want to read along with all the topics that we talk about today on yoa.st/webinar-May 2022. You will find all the links to all the articles that we mention during the webinar.
Yeah,
So
handy.
definitely a handy link. And if you want to learn more about SEO, go to yoa.st/academy because there's tons to learn in our Yoast SEO Academy.
Yep, if you feel lost, that's a really good place to go and backfill some terminology and some context.
Alrighty, and now we really get to the
Okay,
Google News.
here we go.
So what's happening
Well,
in
not so
Google?
much what's happening, but what's happening near me, right? Nice segue. So it was Google I/O a couple of weeks ago, which is their big annual event where they announce all of their upcoming technologies and shiny, shiny toys. They had some really interesting stuff. This is just scraping the surface. I'd go check out the links in the article if you want to dig out more. But we've cherry picked some of the interesting bits. All of this is a little bit, maybe it's coming soon. So very little of this has landed in your browser and on your phone yet, but it's really helpful to understand where Google are going and the kind of things they're interested in, because that steers the kind of strategies you want to be developing and deploying now. This is something they've hinted at over the last couple of weeks. I think we mentioned it briefly last time. The idea that you can take a photo of something or point your phone at something and then supplement that image with a keyword and do a search that takes both contexts. So you can, the example I think was you point it at a shoe and you say this bit in red. And suddenly you're combining Google's text and image processing to do kind of multi-format search, which is very kind of futuristic. It's very personal assistant. It's very much where we see Google wanting to go. That's really cool. This is the next generation of that. And there's a few things they highlighted. One was, for example, taking a photo of some food and saying this but near me, which, as you can see in the example, good for ramen, good for pizza, good for stuff on the fly. That's a really powerful use case that cuts out a whole bunch of kind of manual research. And it's not a huge stretch to imagine that extending to other things like, I don't know, my washing machine breaks down. Give me a replace this and find me the quickest, easiest, cheapest, open, best delivery deal. That's really powerful. They also they're saying,
I wonder how good it is, Jono. Would it work for all the recipes, for example, so all the photos of food, or do you think it will be limited at first?
I wonder. I think it'll be limited at first. I think most bowls of pasta look like bowls of pasta, and it's quite hard to tell the nuance of whether that's a red pepper or a chili at scale. But that said, I think so there's a whole bunch of machine learning, AI, image stuff happening, which I don't think we had time to talk about, but they're certainly wanting that to get better, right? And a lot of these photos are the ones they used on the business' sites and so on. So hopefully it'll get quite good. Yeah, I think food's probably the less interesting use case, but the kind of practical day-to-day stuff is quite cool.
All right. And this
yeah,
looks
this
a
was
bit
cool.
like it, right?
Yeah, this is where they're really going. So they were saying it's already quite useful to be able to take a photo of a thing and enhance it, but it's much more interesting to take a photo of multiple things and get some kind of added context. So the example here was pointing your phone at a shelf full of chocolate bars and saying, identify me the ones that don't contain nuts. And then you can start to see, okay, so all of the research a consumer would have to do can cut through that noise, can make things very, very easy and straightforward and streamlined. And actually, you've got to be really competitive on price, on availability, on positioning. You've got to make things very, very clear. We've got to understand that visual search is going to become a much more important thing, almost as much as text in some context. I see a question in the audience about how does this work in B2B? It's a difficult question. I don't know yet, but things like show me the opening hours, show me where I can complain, tell me about the people who work here. Those types of things are quite interesting and become very easy to do and much more common.
Yeah, and the screenshot we're seeing is Google Lens. Do you think this will be in a browser version soon as well, or is it really stuck to the Google Lens app for now?
Oh, interesting. I know that your phone has different APIs than your browser, and there's some slightly different permission models for being allowed to take photos and things. So might be phone only for now, but it wouldn't surprise me if this becomes more desktop-y over time.
Yeah, and I agree with Olga. It sounds like a dream world almost.
Yeah, for consumers, this is great, right? But it makes it much harder to compete as a business because if you're not the right fit, then you never enter the consideration set.
Yeah, so that's a nice bridge into immersive view? Because that's more aimed at businesses, right?
This is so cool. Yeah. So they're saying they have enough photographs and enough aerial photography from satellites and stuff to be able to take Google Maps and Google Street View and combine them into something immersive and 3D and intelligent. And this was very much coming soon. You can play with a little bit of it on your phone in London, New York, and a few other places. Everywhere else might take a bit longer. But I think there's some really practical, important things that happen as a result of this. One is that users will more actively research things like, how do I get to your business? What's the street layout look like? What's the traffic density look like? What does this place look like at night? Is this appealing when it's raining? All of these things become much more easy to explore and digest when consumers are making decisions about where they're going to go. And then we were talking about things like the impact on B2B setups and organizations where you typically wouldn't expect consumers to arrive. Maybe the appeal of your business and how visual and aesthetic and nice it looks might play into your reputation much more than it has done historically.
Yeah, so that means that the old web-only store now suddenly needs a nice storefront to show off in immersive view. Is that what
Yeah,
you're
quite
saying?
possibly. Yeah, and that in the olden days, the storefront of your cafe or your retail store would have been hugely important, and nowadays is maybe a bit less important. But now that's going to become much more important because again, will normalize users researching, what does this place look like? How do I recognize it? Like the number of times I've gone to meet somebody in a city I'm not familiar with and gone, oh, is this the place? I got the address, but I don't quite recognize. I can do that research in advance. And now if the place looks a bit tatty, I might say, you know what, maybe we should shop there, or maybe we should go to a different restaurant, or maybe I'm going to find a business that looks more reputable. This stuff all becomes quite impactful.
Yeah, so as soon as this rolls out worldwide, we'll see everyone paint their storefronts again to look
Yeah,
nice.
nice, pretty buildings.
Alrighty. Talking about local, what does local SEO do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if all of this is interesting and you have a business that serves customers locally or delivers locally and you haven't already invested in that space, we have a local SEO add-on for WordPress that does a bunch of the heavy lifting on that gives you structure for pages for each individual location. If you're a multi-business location thing, outputs a bunch of schema, gives you contact forms and maps. This is really powerful. Well worth a look.
All right. Then something about Google Assistant.
Yeah, so everybody in the SEO world was very excited about the rise of voice search, us and me included. I think there is a huge amount of potential in being able to talk to your search engine and to use that to query it in different ways than you might not type and to query in contexts that you might not usually do. Like I use it a lot for asking about recipes and adding things to my shopping list and setting timers. And all of those have search components and might have more. It's been a bit rubbish so far. The support's not been great. I have a whole bunch of connected devices in my home, and I spend as much time getting angry with them as I do getting value out of them. They're getting better, and they're nearly there. And yeah, this won't apply for everybody, but again, it's about changing consumer expectations. Users will expect that fluidity. They'll expect to be able to find answers. And where the SEO angle comes in here is it's going to be so much more important that your website has a well-structured content architecture with pages which are focused on the kind of topics that users are searching for, and that your content is really well structured with clear headings and paragraphs and bullet point lists and summaries, so that when you are a good fit for the kinds of things that people are searching for with voice, Google can extract that, can read it succinctly without confusing or irritating the users, and then they can go, okay, that came from this brand, great, they're really helpful, I might consider spending my money with them. So you've got to position your content in a way that Google can easily consume this. This is going to become more normal.
Yeah, and I see no more "Hey Google," and I think I'll actually miss that because quite often now I have a 5-year-old in the living room shouting "Hey Google" because of her high-pitched voice because she's still little. Google doesn't always understand, so yeah, I'm gonna
Interesting.
miss that.
So
But
that's still going to apply to some stuff, but not to other things. Like if you make eye contact with the whatever the camera thing is, the Nest Plus, then you won't need it. So we'll still have some of that.
fortunately, it's so much fun to hear her struggle.
Nice.
All right. And this is completely different. Well, it's images as well, but something completely different with images than we were talking about
Yeah,
before.
this is super important. Google are doing a whole bunch of proactive work and research on when you're searching for anything to do with people and skin color, that it tries to be a bit more sensitive to differences in tones, and it tries to contextualize that based on the kinds of things you're searching for. Obviously, diversity is super important, and it's really important that Google does work to expose that. But there's a nicer narrative behind this, I think, which is that the research they've done and the products they're developing and the standards they're defining on how to do this and how to measure it and how to get it right are all being published. Or some of it's open source. A whole bunch of it is being designed in a way that people can build on. I think this is a really positive step. I know that Google, as a product of a very American-centric company and a very white-centric world, tends to be biased towards not being very diverse when you're searching for this kind of thing. Like they had an example about bridal makeup. Yeah, you can see that here. This isn't a very diverse solution, but if it knows that I have a certain background, or if I'm in a certain location, or if I've searched for other types of things, it might try and be a bit more helpful with that. This is really great stuff.
Yeah, and you were briefly mentioning that they're open sourcing this, and what exactly is it that they're open sourcing?
If you skip to the next slide, I think we had. So I don't know if they're open sourcing it specifically, but they're definitely publishing this openly. So they have the monk skin tone. They've worked with a whole bunch of medical doctors. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's somebody monk who's devised this scale, and they're trying to make this scale the de facto open standard for how do machines describe and understand skin tone. It's quite specific, but I feel like it's a really good step forward in the right direction. And maybe we'll get other things alongside this for things like age discrimination or other biases, because as Google becomes more and more reliant on machine learning and black box systems, they really need to get better at having systems that make sure that those aren't just showing me middle-aged white men from America in all the results. So yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah, although the middle-aged white men, well, maybe not from America, but it's pretty much our target audience.
Well, yeah, so
or
much of the web is, isn't it?
what we
So
resemble as well. Yeah,
yeah, hopefully we can do our bit to change that. And this is positive movement.
yeah, it's a very nice way to, and especially when it's opened to other products, so that we can see the same skin tone variation over all of the apps that we're using and all of the sites as well.
Yeah, exactly.
This is completely different. It has
We're
nothing to do
missing
with
some
images.
segues, aren't we? No, we're all over
Yeah.
the place. Well, this one
Yes.
does. This has to do with this. This still has to do with images, partly. So, Google announced a few weeks ago that they were deprecating and removing support for a whole bunch of kind of very specific niche bits of how they handle XML sitemaps. There is no reason that you ever need to have or should care about this. It was like way down in the depths of your XML sitemap, we had information about things like image captions. The times have changed. Google's got smarter. XML sitemaps are a bit old school. Schema's much more exciting, as I'm sure you will agree if you've been on these webinars before. They've killed off a whole bunch of support in there. What's really nice about this is that the same day we removed support from it in Yoast SEO. So we got the news, we went and made the changes, we shipped out a plugin update. So all of you were immediately updated to the latest standards. And the nice kind of side effect of that is that we saved some kilobytes. Like everybody's XML sitemap is a little bit smaller, which at scale across the 13 million odd websites running Yoast SEO, that's probably rainforests worth of data transfer. We've got a huge focus on how do we minimize the impact of every single kilobyte that we ship. So it was really nice to be removing code rather than adding it. Really cool.
Yeah, and I'm actually quite proud that we were able to do that on the very same day, like within 40 minutes after the news was announced. So, yeah, big round of applause to our development teams working on this.
Yeah, really nice. Oh yeah, so yeah, we really are lacking segues in this one, aren't we? We've just got lots of different bits of disparate news.
Well,
yeah, not
we
a
had a
huge
bit
amount.
of video in the sitemap, so we could have used that to move to
Yeah, we
something
missed
else
it, didn't
video.
we? Damn it. Next time. Well, we'll rehearse better next time. So yeah, this is good news for anyone doing anything with video, which should be increasingly all of you, because video is hugely important and it's how many consumers expect to find and interact with information. It's harder than words, but it's definitely the future. And to reflect that, Google are now finally adding a dedicated video report section to Google Search Console. So you can log into your Search Console account and get information about where you have videos on pages. One of the really nice side effects of this is they clarified something we've been saying for ages that people argue with a lot, is you really should only have one video on a page. Like you might have an overview listing all of your videos, but for a given focus page, you should have a video that is the main entity and focus of that page. It's because that's how Google wants to consume and index it. It's how they want to understand it. And it's often how users want to interact with it. It's how YouTube works for a reason. This is very much the way that video works. So that was really good. And that's aligns with all of our documentation, which is nice. And this should be really helpful for debugging and understanding how you're doing with your videos.
Speaking of video,
Nice.
There's a plugin.
There's the segue. Good work. Yeah. So if you are already doing videos, or if you're not and you want to get started and you want to get the most out of them, we have a video SEO plugin add-on for WordPress that optimizes your images, lets you add in metadata like the name of the author and the format and a whole bunch of other stuff, and automatically generates a whole waterfall of schema-y stuff, which is obviously super handy for getting rich results and featured snippets and helping you get more click-through rate. So yeah, if you're videoing and doing videos and hosting videos and including videos, this will definitely turbocharge them.
All right. Now there's a bit of a harder segue from video to core web vitals.
One of the problems with video is it's often a bit slow, isn't it? Yeah, that's a segue. Yeah,
Sure.
new metrics for Core Web Vitals. So we've talked about these a lot. You are bored to death of Core Web Vitals, but these are the standard metrics by which Google measures the speed of a web page. And if you score well on them, you get a ranking boost. And if you score poorly on them, your customers get annoyed. So it's worth investing the resources. And there's two new ones, which is a super exciting thing. Changing landscapes, which will mean that your site not only has to load quickly, but it has to stay fast, which is a big new expectation.
Yeah, so I by now, because we've talked about it so much, I do understand most of the old core web vitals. And time to first byte is something I understand as well. That's just getting your server to send out stuff ASAP.
Yep.
But interaction to next paint, can you clarify a bit? What's that?
Yeah, so when the page is loaded and I start moving my mouse and I click on something, how long does that take to respond? So we already have a whole bunch of measurements of like how quickly do things on the page load, but this is all about when I go to do a thing, is it still responsive? And you'll certainly have experienced web pages and interactions where it looks like it's done and you go and click on something and it goes, I'm a robot, what's happening? And it's all unpleasant and janky. It's that's what they want to avoid. So, and that's quite often the case if you have a mountain of JavaScript loading, or if your big swipey carousel at the page is taking up all of your computer's graphics card, or all these kinds of bottlenecks happening, which, yeah, you might load a page really quickly, but then, hey, you're going to load 20 videos on that page and stream some live footage. It's going to be really clunky. So it's about optimizing for that as well. Super good.
Yeah, so it's basically the first step in after that initial load, what's happening next.
Yes.
And it's the first core web vital to sort of touch that area.
Yeah, and there'll be more of these. As we've touched on, this is an evolving ecosystem. There are going to be more and more measures. The measures are going to get harder. They're going to get more sophisticated. If you're not already measuring your site speed and using Core Web Vitals via, say, the Lighthouse tool or Page Speed Insights, then now is definitely a good time to go visit that.
Right. With that, we've had all the Google news. So is anything happening in Microsoft?
Oh, well.
And there is.
Yeah, there is one of those rare occasions where there is actually really exciting Microsoft news, right?
Well, when we were prepping for this webinar, you showed me some of what this means. I'm still amazed, but do explain. What are we looking at?
This is really cool. So anyone who's ever watched anything like CSI or a detective movie will have got really annoyed when they're looking at some CCTV footage or some video and somebody says, zoom and enhance. and they magically kind of zoom in and create pixels and get a much clearer picture, which is magic and nonsense. Like, that's not how
Yes,
images work.
it doesn't happen. We can't do that ever,
No, no,
can
except
we?
now we can. And there's been a whole bunch of things that have done flavors of this for a while now. You can use machine working to essentially guess, but guess really well what a better zoomed in, higher resolution version of that image would look like, because you have enough data on what similar images look like. You have enough understanding of how images should look. You can literally fill in the blanks. And yeah, there's a bunch of technologies that do this, but this is the latest one. This is Turing Image Super Resolution. It's from Microsoft, and it's in Edge, the browser. And you can just about make out on the left, there's an image of some shoes. And on the right, you can see the enhanced version of that. And it is, even on these slides, you can see it's much crisper, it's much more detailed, there's much less blurring around the edges. There's a whole bunch of examples on the article where they show different scenarios, like very busy, very colorful images, pictures of people's faces, and they are all much more detailed. They have been zoomed and enhanced, essentially. What's really exciting about this is it's already turning up automatically in your Edge browser. And I'm a devout Chrome user, but this might be enough to switch me, right? If all of the images in my browser are automatically upscaled, how much better is my experience of the web? How much easier and sleeker and nicer is things like, I'm so irritated by businesses with blurry, pixelated images. I really want to understand or see this thing and see what I'm looking at, and it's hard. This is so much better. Really cool.
Yeah, so you're saying it's maybe worth switching to Edge for? And what does this mean? Can we now upload worse quality images on our websites, and thus smaller images, and then everyone using Edge will still see those sharp images? Is it
Yeah,
that
it's
big of an
interesting,
effect?
right? I wonder. I think we're not there yet. Maybe there will come a day when we can definitely get away with that. We can care less about the quality of our images and let systems get it right. I think there's a risk of that now, that it's only going to work on Edge. But also, this is a machine learning system that's not perfect. It might get it wrong. It might introduce artifacting where it fragments some of the colors or edges. It might do something crazy. We don't know. It might not stick around. I think it's still worth investing in image optimization, making sure that you're uploading the right size, the right format, the right ratio. But yeah, maybe where you don't have a great quality image, you will now get upgraded, which is a great benefit. But yeah, we should still, I think, be looking at spending time on getting this right.
All right. So not yet that we can just upload the 10% quality images, but maybe in the future.
Nearly, yeah, nearly. Very
All
cool.
right. In other Microsoft news, something's gone and something's added.
Something borrowed, something new. Yep. What was this? Bing announced that they would no longer allow unverified sitemap pings. What does that mean? If you're running Yoast SEO, whenever you publish or save a post, in the background, we ping all the search engines with your sitemap. And we say, the sitemap has been updated, there are changes, there is a new or updated post, and the search engines go, thank you very much, we will come and call that. Automatically, excellent. Bing changed the rules a little bit and said they would only do that if you had a verified Bing Search Console account, which, even though everybody should, because it's a really good tool, many people won't because it's another consideration and Bing's audience isn't huge. So maybe it's worth doing. If you haven't, go check it out. Or if you had a reference to your sitemap location in your robots text file. Which historically we didn't, for a bunch of reasons in the plugin. We didn't think it was best practice. Again, it's extra kilobytes. The trade-off wasn't quite right. Now with this news, we very quickly changed that. I think today's release of Yoast SEO adds that into your robots text file. You now don't have to worry about this or do anything. We do it automatically. But yeah, really another nice really story of just how much energy we spend keeping you right on the edge. So pretty awesome.
Nice. All right. And then there is WordPress news, because there was a new version of WordPress 6.0.
Yeah, this is a big one, right? The 0.0 updates are always kind of big line in the sand moments where there's lots of new features and stuff. This is very exciting. I think there isn't a big headline feature unless I've missed it. It felt like a lot of this is essentially quality of life stuff. It's making 1,000 small things a little bit easier, which is really good, really powerful. It was things like in this example screenshot, and this has been irritating in the block editor for a while, you can now select text across blocks in exactly the same way you can in Microsoft Word and Office and Notepad, but haven't been able to in Gutenberg. So the way it works, you can now grab and drag your cursor across divides between blocks of text and select it all, which is super useful for copying and pasting. That's such a minor thing, but there's loads of examples of stuff like that that just make it nicer and easier to use. Really cool. And then behind that, there's a whole bunch of performance and caching and database stuff and new Gutenberg block editor blocks, new patterns, new themes, new template systems. If you haven't gone in and played with some of the page layout tools and gone, I want to author and construct and publish quite a complex layout with columns and rows and interactions and things, worth revisiting now on 6.0. That's going to be a lot easier. There's going to be a lot more toys to do that. It's going to look better. It's going to work more nicely. It's really nice. Yeah, no big headline, but I think this is growing up now. The block editor is getting pretty powerful.
So it's definitely worth installing, at least on your testing environment, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm skipping ahead. I saw a question and it's been upvoted quite a bit about, should we update immediately? Should we jump on this? It's always an interesting question. I think, obviously try and do this in a safe environment and test it and make sure it doesn't break anything, because your unique combinations of hosting and plugins and themes and logic might mean something goes wrong. Most people will be just fine, but test it anyway. And then, stay as close to the new stuff as you can, because that's what your competitors are doing and they've got access to all the tools and they've got all the advantages.
Yeah, and as you said, there's a speed optimization, so it actually is worth, it has SEO benefits.
Yeah, I saw a whole bunch of speed upgrades on a bunch of sites where things like menus are now cached better, and there's some new caching logic and performance stuff in some database queries. Lots of little things that add up to make, you're shaving off maybe 50 or 100 milliseconds of some requests, which can make a big difference.
All right. And while the performance of WordPress is growing, WordPress itself isn't.
Yeah,
for the first time in history, right? This is new. This is big.
Yes, and it's particularly interesting, I think, because as you say, it's the first time it's been creeping up towards 40, 41, 42, 43% of the top 100 million websites as reported by Alexa, which is an interesting data set that we could talk about for a while, but isn't necessarily representative of the whole web, but certainly is a good snapshot into the most important, active, commercially valuable parts of the web, which is presumably where most people are playing. For the first time, it dropped a little bit, which is interesting because I think the general assumption has just been that it's going to keep going and going, and more of the web will be published, powered by WordPress. But now we see people, platforms like Wix, like Shopify, like Squarespace, starting to creep in. And these are very aggressive, not in a bad sense, but they are well-funded. They have strong strategies. They are actively chasing market share in a way that WordPress never really has. WordPress has never really needed to market itself or to invest in marketing activities. And then we also have some interesting challenges around WordPress.org and WordPress.com, and some weird relationships between that and Jetpack and players like WooCommerce. Our WordPress's marketing ecosystem is quite fragmented. Shopify and Wix are laser focused, and they're really going after sites and market share, and they're using SEO, and they're doing all the right things. And then you look at WordPress has some performance legacy issues. There's some complexity around adoption for new users. The block editor and full site editing have taken a while to come together. Everything's a bit behind. I think this is good and bad. I think that some competition will be a kick up the bottom for WordPress. It might breed some innovation in a way that it's never really had to before. I think this is healthy. I think I certainly know that WordPress is not a perfect platform or product, and having some people knocking at the door, stealing market share, might be a good wake-up call to accelerate some investment in the right areas. So, yeah, interesting times.
Yeah, so you're saying investment in the right areas. Is that a call to everyone to invest 5% in the future, like the 5 for the Future program that WordPress.org is running?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's a really important one. So WordPress is open source, and I think that's really important. And we certainly at Yoast do. We think that building your business and your content on a platform that you own the code and the content, well, you use the code and the content freely. It's your content in a way that's not in a walled garden, in a way that it can't just be turned off tomorrow, in a way that you can't just be charged to access it tomorrow, is really, really important. Like Wix, Shopify, etc., are good businesses and good platforms, but they're not yours in a way that your WordPress site is yours. And one of the drawbacks of WordPress operating in that way is that we all kind of collectively have to own it, and we have to invest time and resource and energy in improving it. There is very little dedicated development resource for WordPress. It's a far smaller team than Shopify's or Wix's because it's us and it's you. And if you have and can spare the time to say, I will write some documentation, I will test a theme, I will fix a typo, I will write a plugin. More sophisticated stuff like I'm going to go and change the code in WordPress core to add new functionality. WordPress desperately needs more people who can do that, who are willing to get involved and dedicate some of their time to do that. It's a really important call. WordPress is what we make it. And if it's shrinking because it's not getting the love it needs, the only people who can fix that are us. We're all tied to this. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and I think that WordPress 6.0 had over 500 different contributors. So
Yeah.
there's a huge, huge team working on each release of WordPress, and well, you can be one of them.
Yeah, I've had my name on the last few, and I've like just had opinions mostly and chipped away at a few bits and areas. It's really cool to be able to say I have stamped my name across what 40 something percent of the web now. That's awesome.
Absolutely, I can attest to that. Um, Talking about WordPress and e-commerce, there's WooCommerce, and TikTok has announced an integration.
Yeah, we've had a few similar bits of news like this over the last few, where we've seen social platforms like Instagram, like TikTok, starting to look for kind of bespoke integrations with WooCommerce. I think there's two interesting things here. One is, as we've touched on before, there is a race for all of the social media platforms to get closer to transaction because they want the data, they want the ownership of the user, they want to be able to market and advertise and monetize. That makes sense. It's a little bit unpleasant, but you can see why that's happening. But then the other side is WooCommerce pushing back against the likes of Shopify and Wix by having these integrations and making it much more seamless to allow their users to do stuff cross-platform. So if I am selling on WooCommerce but marketing on TikTok, then suddenly it becomes much easier just to integrate those seamlessly. And again, yeah, there are other flavors of this. I think the last one we talked about was you can tie your WooCommerce directly into Instagram and have your catalog be populated. This is going to become more and more common. All of these things are going to interoperate. And WooCommerce is sitting at the heart of a lot of this in the same way as Shopify is alongside some of their ecosystems. So yeah, these things are getting more and more tied together.
Yeah, and as more sites are running on the web and sites are becoming bigger, there's an increased need for security. So in other tech news, I'm practicing. In other tech news, we have something about security.txt.
Yeah, this is a bit nerdy, but it's interesting. So we've talked about robots.txt. You should all be familiar with that. You use it to tell robots what you do and don't want crawled on your website. Security.txt is a bit newer. Now, it's been around in kind of early formats for a while, but now it's an official formal standard and part of the web. It's essentially a little file that you put on your website that says, here we go, this is ours. This is yoast.com, our security text file. It says, here is where you can go to find out about our security policy. Here is who you should email if you find a massive data breach on our website. And this here's some information about the file itself. Excuse me. It might also list key people and their contact details and contributors and other stuff. There's all sorts you can do with this. This is a really nice standard for kind of maturing the security of the web. I quite often run, as part of my SEO research and probing around the web, I quite often run into websites which are exposing information that they probably shouldn't in Google, things like invoices and customer information. And it's always a bit of a pain to say, okay, how do I find the right person to contact? How do I report this? Standardizing those mechanisms is quite cool. If you're a bit nerdy and you've got a website that you think might benefit from this, it's a 2-minute job to write this. It's just a text file and upload it via FTP or whatever systems you use. This is really good practice, and it means that if you have a security problem that you didn't know about, it makes it much easier for people to tell you about it. Because the worst thing that can happen to your SEO is a site hack or an exposure of information at scale, because it's, wow, you're going to have to spend quite a while cleaning that up. So getting early notifications handy.
What? So there's not a direct SEO impact for having this, but it definitely is beneficial for your website.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. And now we never have to log in again.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? That'd be really
Do
nice.
we?
The amount of time I spend. Not quite. This is all a bit coming soon. And this has been coming soon for about a decade and a half. But it feels like we're close. And the principle is that passwords suck as an authentication method because you forget them. Or you change them all the time because of whatever security policy your company has, and then you write them down on post-it notes, or you rely on some third-party platform like 1Password or LastPass, in which case that's better, but then it's still complications and issues, and sites get hacked, and they don't store their passwords properly, and they don't have a security text file, so it doesn't get reported properly. Passwords are messy. And in theory, our phones in particular, but also increasingly our laptops and our computers, have systems for biometric authentication and iris scanning and location sensors and a whole bunch of other stuff, which collectively might be a much easier way to sign in. And you've almost certainly already used websites and apps on your phone that use things like your thumbprint and eye recognition and face recognition in a way that are as secure as passwords, if not more so. This is important for SEO and similar because it's going to change the expectations of your customers. If you're running a clunky e-commerce store where you have to add your email address and repeat your email address and define a password and repeat your password, and then it gets reset and it's a pain in the bum and you have to get an email across to recover it, and that's frustrating, then that's going to feel a lot clunkier than just, say, using Amazon or doing something directly through Google search results. The expectations of customers are going to rise. So if your website is clunky, it's not going to be a ranking factor, but users are less likely to have a great experience, which means they're less likely to engage, to recommend, to link, to share, which is going to hurt you over time. So the ecosystem level improvements to the web itself is going to up what you have to do on your own websites.
All right. So this will make life easier. Speaking about making life easier, that's what Amazon does as well, right?
Yeah, and this is another chapter of that same story, right? So you will all no doubt be familiar with Amazon's Buy Now with Prime thing. It's kind of one of their USPs. Now they are launching the ability for other stores to use that buying interface and that button. So if I have an e-commerce store, I can install Amazon's Buy with Prime button on my checkout, and users can go through Amazon's checkout infrastructure, which is very well optimized, very efficient, very best practice, very well proven, very streamlined. Users are already logged in, or their credit card details are already saved, their address is saved, and I can buy directly through that. Similarly to how you might with Stripe or PayPal. Where this gets really powerful is if you're also using Amazon's Fulfillment by Amazon program, which is where you store your inventory in Amazon's local warehouses and they handle the fulfillment, which is becoming much more common as they stretch out and expand into other cities and areas. All of this now also comes with free delivery and free returns. So Amazon essentially becomes your e-commerce engine, and your website and store essentially just product listings. And there's an interesting question about the handoff of power and ownership there. Is that a comfortable relationship? At what point do you just get subsumed by Amazon? Oh, I don't know. But it's certainly going to, again, reduce the friction. It's going to increase user expectations that stuff should be this easy, and your own clunky, slow website where I've got to fill out a form and tell you my address is going to feel like friction. So you've got to be better in other places. You've got to have better content. You've got to have better reputation. You've got to have better user experience. All of this stuff is going to become harder. Sorry.
Yeah, but you don't want to give up and just go with Amazon all the time. Let's
Nope.
own our own content. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That said, about owning things, Shopify now owns Deliver.
Yeah, and this is huge. So this is very similar to Amazon's fulfillment engine system. This is end-to-end logistics. So I can set up a store on Shopify and walk away, because the Deliver integration will handle shipping, logistics, storage, inventory. What they're saying, that manage inventory from port to porch. So all of the logistics stuff I would typically have to set up and manage, or if not manage, at least juggle a little bit as a store owner, all just gets taken away and run by Shopify. And this is happening internationally. It's happening alongside all of their existing infrastructure. This is hugely powerful. So if I want to get to market without having to do anything, and I'm not too worried about owning my content and being on an open source platform, Shopify is becoming more and more powerful as a way to just do that hands off, like as a frictionless, easy way to say, you know what, I want to sell cupcakes, or I want to knit beanies and just ship it. This is so easy. And yeah, it has its downsides. Like, again, the open source space, more control and more ownership can be good. Maybe you don't want to be living on somebody else's rented property. There's pros and cons, but this is super powerful.
Yeah, and if you do pick Shopify, then there again is something amazing available.
Yeah, we have a Shopify thing. We in January, I think, launched a Shopify app that does a lot of what Yoast SEO for WordPress does, and you're familiar with, but in Shopify, and a whole bunch of stuff that's specific to Shopify and to e-commerce. So yeah, if you're playing in that space, this is well worth checking out. It's super powerful. It does all the clever schema stuff we do in WordPress. It has great support. It's very fancy and shiny, and it's continually improving, and we're shipping new features pretty much every day. Yeah, check it out.
All right. And then last in our other tech news, and we have to speed up a bit because we have so much to cover today, but there is an article by someone we know very well, by Joost de Valk, who wrote about optimized crawling for the environment. What's this about, Jono?
This is a super cool read. It's something we've touched on a few times. Search engines crawl the web to find content and to check if your content's been updated and to follow links and to discover new URLs. And that is a hugely inefficient process. They are like blind, drunk children, just bouncing off walls, hitting pages, downloading CSS, as children often do. Very strange. No, like it's a very cumbersome, very expensive process. And every URL they crawl, every page they request, everything they download comes with a cost. It costs them money and electricity to do it in their servers and their data warehouses. And it costs your site and your hosting money to deliver those resources. And those kilobytes add up, that electricity adds up, and it warms the ocean, and it chops down trees to fuel power plants, etc., etc. So the fewer bytes we can ship, and the more efficient we can make crawling, and the less we can have Google and Bing, etc., just bounce around blindly, the better it is for everybody, the better it is for them, the better it is for us, the better it is for the environment. Yoast has done a whole bunch of work researching this and seeing where there's wastage and talking about it. And as a result, I think the next slide, maybe.
Yes. Next slide says Yoast News.
Next slide is that we built a thing. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Yeah, some of the latest features in today's release include the first few options for you to go and try and manage that a bit. We've got a toggle in a beta test of a toggle in the premium plugin that lets you start to remove some superfluous RSS stuff in WordPress that doesn't need to exist, that Google certainly doesn't need to crawl, but hey, guess what? Crawls regardless. And that will save some kilobytes and help the planet. So that's worth looking into.
Saving the planet is always a good idea, and especially if you can do it with Yoast SEO Premium. And that brings us to our Q&A. And so, as you said before, usually I would be behind the scenes and answering quite a few questions already in the Ask a Question section, but I didn't get to that today. So there is a long list of questions, and we'll do our best to touch most of them. The first one, as always, is there a replay? Yes, there will be a replay available on yoast.com/webinar.
And it will be just as good as this.
Yes, it will be exactly as good as this. Unless you're relying on the chat, because we can only reply to the chat right now. So on video SEO, there's a question by Mark who says, one video per page, embedded from YouTube or self-hosted?
Oh, good question. Either, it doesn't really matter. You can have a page with lots of videos, and you can have a page that lists lots of videos. But if you want to really optimize, you want to get the rich results, you want to get the fancy schema stuff, and you really want to get users directly into that video at the right point, you need to have one focused video on that page. And yeah, that won't make a difference if it's self-hosted or if it's on YouTube.
as long as you make sure that all the schema and everything is done right.
Yep.
Perfect. Then Tammy says, I'm new to Yoast SEO. SEO. How do I up my game? Well, this is a very timely question because we will be starting a webinar series for new Yoast SEO users soon. I'm not going to spoil the date yet, but keep your eyes out on our newsletter. And that will be a weekly webinar where you will learn more about Yoast SEO and how to get started with it. If you don't want to wait, which is fair, we also have a Yoast SEO Academy, which we talked about before, and there is a Yoast SEO course, so you can learn everything you need to know about Yoast SEO.
Nice.
I think there's more questions around video, so let's stick with that topic for a bit. About the video page indexing report, does this count embedded YouTube videos?
I don't know, but I assume so. It's quite normal to embed video. In fact, it's much more normal to embed videos than it is to self-host them. Self-hosting videos is an expensive, complicated nightmare most of the time. I would be very surprised if it doesn't, but definitely go check the article from the list of links that we shared.
Yeah, and
Or
especially
just wait for it to turn up and check it.
Yeah, and especially given YouTube is kind of owned by Google, it would be weird if they didn't promote YouTube videos, right?
Yep. Yeah, it would.
All right. And then again, does the Yoast video plugin work only for hosted videos hosted directly on your site, or also if you share them from YouTube?
That one's easier. Also with YouTube. Yep. Plays really nicely with embedded stuff from YouTube.
All right, that's a quick one. This will make a few questions before we're coming up on the full hour. So around integrated and augmented search, how do we profit from this feature in B2B? We already touched on that quickly before. And I think the answer before was not quite sure yet.
Well, yeah, I'm of a school of thought that there's no such thing as B2B, as when it comes to search, especially that humans search for solutions to the problems they have, and those are complex, drawn-out processes that often involve multiple searches over time, and in B2B spaces often involve multiple humans. And the things that they see, and the content that they read, and the routes that we shuffle them down influence what happens next, and influence where and if they end up spending. And there are definitely going to be scenarios in some industries where looking at something, pointing a phone at something, asking a voice search, enhancing an image with text might play part of that journey. You will need to work out strategically where that makes sense for you, but I would be hesitant to dismiss it out of hand just because you're selling to businesses rather than people. They're still people. They still search. They still make decisions.
All right. So really, it's business to people, as always.
Yep.
Before we move on to the next question, if you didn't notice yet, at the bottom of this screen, there is a sign up for next month's webinar flashy button, and that will allow you to sign up for the next SEO news webinar. And we'll have a guest.
Yeah, this is going to be really good. So we're getting in the habit of getting some guest speakers in. Next month is Barry Adams, who, if you haven't come across, is the kind of mafia godfather of news SEO. He won't thank me for saying that. But yeah, so we're having an SEO news webinar about news SEO, and which mouthful, but news SEO is a really interesting, competitive, complex space. It moves a lot faster than conventional SEO, but with the rise of Google Discover and other things, it's becoming like everybody has to be a publisher, and what is and isn't news and where the borders are starts to erode a bit. So this is definitely going to be relevant for everybody.
All right, and I think that if you are a monthly visitor of this webinar, you may have seen Barry in the chat a few times before, because he oftentimes is around this webinar anyway. So it totally made sense to have him join us. I think we have time for a few more questions. And the first one is one that I'd be interested in as well. Will you be doing a how-to on voice and visual SEO?
I think we did one maybe in last year's summer camps. I'm pretty sure we did a session on the kind of voice and query stuff. But given that was a while ago, it's probably worth revisiting. I don't think it's much different from the kind of conventional advice we give, which is that content structure and being on topic and answering questions well is really the crux of it. There isn't a different type of SEO for voice search or image search, particularly, other than having really good content that's on point and just making sure that's well structured and digestible. But yeah, we can have a think about that and see if there's any stuff that stands out. That'd be interesting.
All right, sounds good. There's a quick question, and that is Yoast Local SEO a free plugin or part of the paid Yoast? Well, it's neither. It's a separate product. It is a paid add-on, but it's not part of Yoast SEO Premium. So it's a separate add-on that you can find on yoast.com/shop, or the
Yeah,
direct link would be yoa.st/local. So
nice,
that's
smooth.
where you can find it. Then we have our final question for today.
No,
Yes, and it's
go on
the
then.
most upvoted that we have left. What if someone is a good writer, having their own site with some good working SEO knowledge, but totally lacking skills in technical SEO? How can they address the technical issues to get there into SERP ranking? Is what Aditi asks.
I like that question. That's good. Because it's good because you have already solved the hard bit. A big part of what Yoast SEO tries to do is take away the technical stuff. Like there are right ways to do that and wrong ways to do it, and we get it right, and we put as much of that in the background as we possibly can. The hard bit for many businesses when they're trying to rank and compete and be visible is having good content, is having something interesting to say, is being able to produce content that people want to read that's engaging. That is the tricky bit. I guess the simple answer is don't worry too much about the technical side if you're on WordPress and you're running Yoast SEO. Focus on the content side. However, if you want to dial it up to 11 and go a bit faster, go check out Yoast Academy. We have a whole bunch of technical SEO stuff in there, which will take you from what is a server all the way through to what toggle should I click and how should this work, handhold you all the way through, tests and videos and information. There's a whole bunch of webinar type things where even I get involved and present some of the content. You can learn everything you need. You do not need to be a massive expert in technical SEO. That's what we're for. It's what I spend all of my time being, so you don't have to focus on the content side. But yeah, if you want to get further, then the Academy is a great place to go learn.
All right, that is a brilliant answer. Thank you so much for that, Jono. With that, we do have to wrap up. Jono,
Oh,
thank you so much for joining me today.
Taco, thank you.
Yeah, it's a bit weird to do this without Joost de Val. But I think we managed. I see some nice comments in the chat. So thank you for staying with us for the full hour. And I definitely hope to see you again next month when Jono is joined by Barry Adams and hosted by Nienke.
Yeah,
So
one last
see you
question.
next
I've just
month.
seen a question from Bruno saying, when will this question be answered? The answer is now. Sorted.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you very
everyone.
much, everybody. This was
Bye-bye.
lovely.